A celebrity, a former MP, or someone who's had an extremely interesting career to take a look at life. We talk highs, lows and lessons learned and what comes next. Today, I'm speaking to the founder of Patient Lives That Matter, Jay Patel. Now, he'll be joining me to discuss Jay's son, Balram, who died at the age of 30. Now, Jay believes that his son would still be alive if they had been able to get a second opinion from another doctor. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are Labour under the thumb of the unions? As ever, tell me your thoughts, post your comments at gbnews.com/you'll say. 7 minutes after 5 o'clock, and it's time for Outside. As ever, we always talk highs, lows and lessons learned and what comes next. And this week, my guest is Jay Patel. Now, he's the founder of Patient Lives Matter. His son, Balram Patel, tragically died in 2023, aged just 30, while suffering from several life-threatening conditions. A coroner's investigation has since been opened into Balram's premature death, and Jay believes his son would still be alive if they had been able to get a second opinion from another doctor. Well, I'm joined now by Jay Patel. Jay, thank you very much for joining me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So talk to me about Balram. I mean, he was born with half a heart.
Yeah, I mean, he was born with half-functional heart, and we really didn't know how long we had with him. But he was happiness personified. He was a fighter. Within 6 weeks, he was diagnosed with a second life-threatening condition, at 3 years severe scoliosis. Later on, around 14, he vomited a litre of blood. Very unusual for him. He was diagnosed with fourth life-threatening condition in 2007. He spent 81 days at Everleigh Children's Hospital. His fifth life-threatening condition called plastic bronchitis, which is very similar to cystic fibrosis. And then sadly, 2 weeks before he passed away, stage 4 liver cancer, BCLC, stage D. But he fought. He was a walking miracle.
So he was able to walk and move?
Oh, yeah, he walked with oxygen.
Yeah.
I didn't do long distances because of his heart. Yeah. He communicated extremely well, very cheeky little devil.
So he could talk and everything else?
He could talk, he could eat, he could communicate. He had limitations of physically what he could do. He was developmentally delayed, so even though he was at the age of 30...
Oh, look.
He was a baby of a mental age of around 8. But, you know, he took everything on his cuff. He rewrote the history books. Throughout his, I think early on in his life, they wanted to make a syndrome of anybody having this number of non-related conditions. But I said we love Balram as Balram. He also had a dozen other conditions outside his 6 life-threatening conditions. But, I mean, if I go into the story of Balram, which is okay with you, the sad part is that he wasn't allowed to continue his life. You say about second opinion, him still being here now. I don't know if he'd be here now today, but I sure do know that he wouldn't have passed away on the 9th of August the way he did. Basically, what happened around the 14th of July last year, Balram at home, his oxygen levels plummeted. I wasn't there, my wife and my daughter were. They sort of put him on full oxygen, but he wouldn't revive very well. So an ambulance was called, he was taken to Barnet, he became better. They discharged him, took him to Guy's and St Thomas's to have a review, and they discharged him, saying they're quite happy with him. We got a call on the 18th of July from the consultants to say, could we bring him back? Because his infection markers had crept up from what was 125 to 194 inflammation markers. And
was he showing any signs of illness when they called him back?
Well, he still had the conditions that he had. You know, nothing particularly untoward. But, you know, we respect the hospital, and if they say things aren't right, we'll listen to them.
Yeah.
So we took him in, and gradually his inflammation and infection markers started subsiding, but he started going edemic. He started retaining fluid. That's not unusual for Balram because he's got a cardiac condition, but the trouble we had is that none of the oral diuretics would work. They tried a whole combination, but nothing worked. So on the 28th of July, they put him on intravenous diuretics, diuretics pumped directly into the bloodstream. And he started improving quite well. On the 30th of July, they put a note on the ward door to say, as of tomorrow, start wearing masks. So I then questioned this to say if there was COVID on the ward. Eventually, they told me there was. So I questioned the nurses and doctors and said, listen, we're doing everything for Balram other than the IV diuretics. We were giving all his 20-30 medication, his physio, his nebulizers, dealing with his incontinent, everything, and we were happy to do it. So they agreed with us that Balram's interests are best served to be at home, especially because we're quarantining at home as well. The next day, on the 31st July, the consultant removed the IV and put him on what they call subcutaneous diuretics, which are little attachments onto the tissues, and they pump the drugs into the body in that manner. They also gave us the option to find other people to administer this medication. Very bizarre. You wouldn't ask a parent of a very sick child to find ways of administering drugs. But we did. They approached one of them and they didn't approach the other. On the 3rd of August, nothing seemed to be happening. So I then sent them an email and said, unless you discharge Balram with appropriate treatment, we're going to ask for a court order that he be released to come home. On the 3rd of August, the consultant and the adult congestive heart disease nurse and Richard's fellow came to the room and said, actually, it's okay for Balram to be discharged on oral diuretics. And I said, I don't understand. How can he be discharged on oral diuretics when they already failed in hospital a week earlier and they had to go on IV? They said, no, he'll be absolutely fine. And I argued and I argued. I then asked for a second opinion. The first time I asked for a second opinion and said, could I please have another doctor examine Balram, look at the records and explain to me how oral will be fine when they have failed here previously and I can't see how it would work.
When you were asking for a second opinion, was it because of the way you were being treated, or was it just simply because you wanted another opinion?
Well, I couldn't agree with what they said.
Yeah.
It made no sense. It still doesn't make any sense.
Did you have like a feeling of, sometimes when people are talking, you get a feeling that they're being sort of obstinate and are not allowing you to get past, or was it just an exchange where you just wanted?
Well, I mean, it made no sense. And I was like talking to a brick wall. I said, explain to me why we started IV 5 days earlier when oral failed, and now you're telling me oral are going to be okay. And if there's going to be an issue, we'd rather have it in the hospital as opposed to being at home.
Yeah.
So they said I couldn't have a second opinion. The consultant that was in the room would be the one that would give the opinion. But they also then said to me, look, take him home. We will cover you. We will protect you. If there's any issues, bring him straight back. Take regular weights and buy us time. I even went out of the room with my wife and my daughter to ask the adult congenital nurse that, are you sure you're not sending him home to die? And they said, no, we're not. So we took Balram home. And if you could play the video that I sent earlier, this is Balram on the 4th of August at home, happy as Larry, enjoying life.
We should have a video of that. We'll play that.
We'll play that.
There'll be no sound on it, but there he is.
Oh, there he is. So this is Balram at home on the 4th of August.
Oh, he's sitting up. He's fine.
He's happy. His edema, you can see his legs. They're not that thick. There's not retaining much fluid. I asked him, Balram, what are you doing? He said, I want to be in my lovely home.
Oh.
And, he walked about 100 metres throughout the day on his oxygen, between 3 different periods. He came and had breakfast with us, lunch with us.
Oh.
The 5th of August, sadly, the edema started arriving. The 6th, it got worse. I rang the hospital around midnight and said, my son is struggling.
Oh.
On the 7th, I eventually got through and spoke to one of the adult congenital heart nurses, and I'm going to play to you the conversation.
Well, actually, we probably shouldn't play the conversation if it's with somebody who's not here to defend themselves.
Oh, OK. Well, then I'll tell you the context of it, if that's OK. So basically, I said that Balram is very, very unwell. He's retaining fluid. Could we please start the IV diuretics? They said no. I actually said, my son is dying.
Yeah.
We need to start the IV diuretics. They again said no. I said the protocols, we bring him home. If they don't work, we contact you. We've contacted you now. They said, continue trialling oral. And I was gobsmacked. I asked once again that the consultant call me. And they said, trial further. I said, we don't have the privilege of trialing. At 2 o'clock, I get a call from the hospital. Well, they once again say, continue trialling oral. This is the second time I asked for second opinion. And I said, I do not agree with this treatment. Can you please ask somebody else to look at what's going on? This is despicable, it's outrageous, and my son is dying. They turned around and said, continue with oral and trialling oral. They've actually logged this as well. This has been logged by the chief executive of the NHS Trust in his complaints to say, yes, we did call you at 2 o'clock on the 7th of July, and on the 7th of August. And we have noted that you asked for second opinion, and we have noted that you disagreed with the treatment. On the 8th, he was a lot worse. Oh. We called 3 times. Eventually, we spoke to the adult clinician nurse around 12:30, midday. She said, well, why don't we wait for the palliative care doctor that's coming in about half an hour to see him? I said, look, he has to have IV diuretics. If she agrees to it, fine. If not, he's coming to the hospital. I already started loading the car.
Was he conscious, and were you able to...
He was conscious, but he was struggling. My baby was having difficulty breathing. The palliative care doctor came. She was horrified. She said, how could anybody let a patient get into this state? We suggest you take him to the hospital. So we rushed him to Guy's and St Thomas's. We got there at 5:30 in the afternoon. At 6 o'clock, they gave him a single 40 milligram intravenous diuretic dose. At 6:54, they took an X-ray of his lungs. His lungs were flooded. He was suffocating breathing. And 6 hours later, 6 hours later, they started the IV diuretics. And less than 3 hours later, my baby died. And sadly, it didn't end there. It started another nightmare. In the morning at 9 o'clock, I went to the bereavement office. I told them Balram had passed away, because that's the protocol in the hospital. As we were leaving at 1:30 in the afternoon, I went to the bereavement office and said, do they have a conclusion into the cause of death? And they said, yes, we do. I said, well, that was very quick. They said that he died, number 1A, congestive heart failure, number 1B, congenital heart failure, and number 2, stage 4 liver cancer. I said, but no, he didn't die from that. He died from pulmonary edema. He died from fluid on his lungs. There's no, he didn't. I said, well, yes, he did. I then asked if they have the X-ray taken literally 12 hours before. And they said, what X-ray? So I said, well, I've got it. They said, oh, we'll get it from the notes. Then they came to me and said, they don't have the X-ray. So I said, well, lucky for you, I've got a photo of it. So I presented a photo to her, and her jaw dropped. She then said to me, well, you know, that in itself isn't sufficient. I said, do you have all the records of the phone conversations that we had previous days? She said, there are no records, there are no phone conversations. Yes, they are. I said, would you like to listen to them? She said, no. I said, well, how biased are you? Or how non-biased are you? I said, I've got evidence pertaining to my son's death, what caused his passing, and you don't want to even look at it. Eventually, I convinced her to, and I played the recording, which I appreciate I can't play now. She couldn't believe what was said. She then turned around and said, well, pulmonary edema is not a condition that can be written down. I said, I'm sorry, I don't get it. You know, if you have asthma and you need an asthma pump and you're denied that pump, you can't blame the asthma for taking your life. You can blame the denial of having the pump. Next, I get a call from the coroner to say that we're ready to issue the cause of death. I said, okay, what is it? They said, number 1A, congestive heart failure, number 1B, congenital heart failure, and number 2, stage 4 liver cancer.
No mention of the edema.
No, once again, I protested. I said, no, that's not how my son died. They then asked me to write to them, bearing in mind this is literally a day or two after my baby died.
To do, isn't it?
Well, I couldn't brush my teeth. But I did. I sent them a little letter saying, look, this is the reasons why. This is not a substantive list. Please don't rely on it in that context, but it gives you an idea what's going on. The coroner wrote back to me 2-3 days later and said, right, we've gone to the hospital. We've asked them to change the cause of death to now say number 1A, pulmonary edema.
And did they do it? It was done. So
number 1B, yeah, number 1B, they didn't agree to it, but they changed it.
But you got it done because you kept a log of everything.
Well, I just said it's not right. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not right.
You have to have the correct information. Look,
well, I mean, you tell me where it's wrong.
We're running out of time.
Okay.
So you set up Patient Lives Matter.
So basically, very briefly, just thereafter, 2 minutes, if that's what I need. After that, we then went back to the coroner, and 3.5 months later, the hospital wrote a statement of truth as to what happened. The coroner then came back to me and said there's going to be no inquest and no inquiry, and that there was no culpability, and that my son died of natural causes. I then argued with the coroner to say, how can you base it all upon a single witness statement from the other side? I then produced to the coroner over 40 false statements in that witness statement, a statement of truth. And right now, my fight is very much that how can we proceed without the truth?
So you set up Patient Lives Matter?
Yes, I did.
If people want to get in touch or become part of your organisation, do you have a website or something?
Yeah, so basically we have a website called Patients Lives Matter. Yep. You can go on to, if you just type Patients Lives Matter, it will come up. We have a petition on change.org, which is around 44,000 signatures already. I'd like to increase that as much as we can. We also have my email, j@patientslivesmatter.co.uk. People can come on to that. Balram's anniversary of his death is the 9th of August.
Yeah.
Our plans are on that day to first go to the temple, because he's very religious, our baby, and then go to the houses at Downing Street and hand a petition to the Prime Minister of all these signatures out of respect of the people that have signed it. And also we're trying very, very strongly to help the British public. I love our NHS. Please don't get me wrong, but it needs rectification. It needs our help. It needs to be channeled and tunneled into a way that is far more productive than where it is now.
Listen, Jay, it's been really good to talk to you. I'm really sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I hope we wish you all the success in your petition. Nobody wants to be here having to do that, but
I can't bring my baby back.
yeah, but you can. But you may be able to make a change and help others. And I think this
But Balram was an angel,
Yeah,
and that's what he left me giving his dad. He said, "Dad, if anybody can sort it out, you can. Go help others, and let's make a change." So that's what I'm here to try and do with the British public on my side, to say we love our NHS, but we need to help her get into the right path. And I think the petition that we're asking for, which is an independent body, regulate the conduct of the NHS and medical institutes. And I think if we can arrange that, that's a start.
All right, Jay, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you.
Thank you.
That is, of course, Jay Patel. Now, of course, the hospital in question are not here to defend themselves, but that is Jay's story. But next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, are Labour under the thumb of the unions? This is GB News.